Welcome and thanks for listening to Finura Group's podcast, The Game of FinTech. Today, I'm your host, Danni Grande, and today we're going to be discussing the Investment Trends 2022 Advisor and Advice Technology Report. And I'm really lucky today to be joined by Paul McGivern at Investment Trends. Paul was previously a director of CoreLogic and partner of Comparative Business Benchmarking, which was the leading provider of benchmarking to Australian financial services providers. And Paul really brings a depth of industry expertise to his role as research director at Investment Trends. So thanks, Paul, for joining me today on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Danni.
So I'm really keen. We had a podcast earlier this year talking and unpacking what was in the Advisor and Advice Technology Report, but it's safe to say it's probably been a bit of a dramatic year when it comes to advice technology, and a lot's sort of changed, and we've had acquisitions and mergers and voluntary administrations and that sort of thing. So I just kind of wanted to talk through some of those key findings perhaps and bring some of those things that have happened this year into it. So just to recap, this was a benchmark survey of 5 end-to-end technology providers. So when we say end-to-end, we're talking about the providers that provide functionality to support every step in the advice process. So think Xplan, Advisor Logic, Midwinter, those applications. We had 15 application solution providers. So those ancillary applications that you use on the side, so advice research, client portals that are standalone, risk profiling tools like Finametrica, for example, advice production, and that sort of thing. We also covered 6 digital advice providers and 2 investment platforms. So a really comprehensive way of assessing the functionality that these platforms are offering and this tech is offering to advice businesses. And the way that we framed it up was the jobs to be done in the advice process to sort of bring some relevance, I guess, to advice businesses and to those tech providers as well. The report covered a roadmap of current capabilities and functionality and recent developments, and also what's in the pipeline for these tech providers as well. And the hope by sharing our findings throughout the report was that we can help inform the process of making technology decisions and empower advisors to make really good decisions when it comes to choosing their tech partners, and also provides insights to the tech providers as well on what their peers are doing. So, Paul, we haven't had such a comprehensive and detailed report into the advice tech ecosystem for a while. And so why now?
Yeah, thanks, Danni. Yeah, look, we were really excited to do this project with Finura. It was a great marriage of competencies between the two firms in investment trends with our deep research and statistical capabilities, looking across the whole of the advice sector, both understanding what consumers want and also what advisors want from the tech providers, married with Finura's deep expertise in the jobs to be done and exactly where the different advice tech providers fit in the ecosystem of providing advice. So it was a really great project to work on Finura with. And, we've got a great report, which we produced at the end of last year and released at the start of this year. But even since the report's been released, things have changed again, as Danni alluded to in the intro.
Yeah, brilliant. So just can you help us understand the methodology? Because we sort of, the report I think ended up 360 pages long. So it's very, very comprehensive. So Let's talk through the methodology and how we worked to get all of that information together.
Yeah, so it's basically like a compendium or a library of the different capabilities of the different providers. And then, as you said, Danni, some practical showcase examples of what their roadmaps, development roadmaps had been in the 22 calendar year, and some like a detailed list of their current capabilities and also an assessment by us on the relative capabilities. So as you said, we had the 5 end-to-end providers, and we asked them to fill in a competency and capability grid on 346 different criteria spread across the 9 different sort of jobs to be done. And the jobs to be done were support, integration. Sorry, the categories that we assessed them all on was their support capability, including things like implementation, phone, live chat, email, then integration with other applications, open API, and integrations available, direct integration capability, data feeds, etc. The review capability. So this is things like future financial advice functionalities, fee disclosure availability, etc. Advice implementation. So data feeds, applications from pre-populated integration to task shareability, follow-up email capability, file note templates, etc. The advice recommendation and production process, so proprietary and integrated research tools for super investment and risk strategies, advice templates, scenario calculators, and so on. The discovery and client engagement capabilities. So this was things around like the client portal functionality, secure messaging, cash flow visuals, etc., online meeting rooms. Then the fact finding and uncovering needs for advice. So this was fact-finding functionalities, risk profiling, questionnaires, file uploads, goals and needs, goal discovery and modelling and integration with risk profiling tools. And then lastly, practice management, configuration of business intelligence. So this is things like dashboards, reportings, commissions and revenue functionality. So a really comprehensive list of capability, particularly for the end-to-end providers. And then for the application solution providers, sort of a simpler question set around focused around their sort of where do they fit in the 9-step jobs to be done universe. And then also we included the digital solution providers and then finally platforms and where they fitted into the universe. So yeah, that's the sort of architecture of what we did in relation to, and the questions that we asked. And so as a result, we ended up with a very sort of detailed and comprehensive report showing what each of these providers are doing and where they fit into in the universe of advice tech.
Yeah. Amazing. So I think we sort of, from all of that information, I guess we came up with some key findings from all of the detail that we got from what you've just discussed and explained there. And I guess one of the ones was tech providers. What we've noticed is tech providers are now broadening their offers to increase their relevance. But I guess this has sort of led to some complexity for advisors as well. We're sort of looking at systems, to your point, you just explaining all of that functionality. There's so much functionality sitting in a lot of these systems. You put it in front of advisors and their staff. There's a lot to that. So the tech landscape has become really, really vast. And with so many products and different products on the market, new products coming in, it's no wonder decision-making can be a pretty daunting task for advice practices. And it was evidence in the report that tech providers are really putting significant efforts into building out functionality to support advisors throughout the advice journey, which is really great news. And it's really sort of necessary in our heavily regulated environment where the cost to serve clients is quite high, and technology can really help drive down and help advisors reach more consumers, which is really great. And, we've sort of had some recent news around the super fund environment that sort of touches on how this can actually, help advisors reach those consumers and bring more efficiencies through to do that. Did we want to just sort of touch on that while we're on this topic, the recent news with super?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, just with the very recent releases of the APRA and ASIC report, and also the government's intergenerational report just released yesterday. The focus now is heavily upon the super funds and retirement, and we know that the needs for particularly people entering into the pre-retirement, retirement phase is rapidly rising to the top of the agenda, and we strongly feel that the needs of both the advisors and their clients for more and better tools to help them in this journey to retirement is going to be a real focus for all parts of the industry going forward. And so there's been, since this report's been released at the start of the year, the sort of macro environment has really changed. All the focus is really sort of zoomed in now on that. So all this capability and tools that the advice tech providers developing has become even more important since the report was released.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think back to what we found there as well, tech can perform many functions and it does take time to understand what that software can do. And we did sort of notice, we sat in and had a look through these systems as well, and spoke to the teams at the tech providers, which was really great. And we did see that support and implementation and onboarding into those systems, there was a lot of focus going into making sure that their users that in advice businesses were well supported, and we sort of found that they were really building them out, didn't we?
That's right. Yes. Yeah, it's a very dynamic environment, and we were very impressed with a lot of the developments in functionality that they have been working on last year. And so we feel that they had really been listening to advisors and trying to solve these pain points around helping them more efficiently generate advice, more precisely, do it in a more cost-effective manner, and that things around developing one-stop tools for research, analytics, and portfolio construction, due diligence, and ongoing monitoring were really coming along as well. So yeah, it was it was really great to see these firms making some really big and practical improvements to their capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, sort of what I guess one of the key takeaways from this key finding for advice businesses is to really make sure you're doing your due diligence really well, making sure that this technology is really going to fit in with your business and your advice process and everything else that you're doing. It's really important to understand what these tech providers are going to provide you and manage those expectations as well. And I think, unfortunately, we've seen advice intelligence and creative maths go into voluntary administration this
Yes.
year, but fortunately be acquired by GBST, which is good. So, we watch closely with those two providers and how that's going to play out in the future. But I think, if you are in a product and things do go awry, it is very disruptive to your business. So I think, we sort of just reiterate that point to make sure you're doing your due diligence and doing your research into these products and the functionality that they offer.
Absolutely. Yes.
Alrighty, key finding number 2. So this is around data feeds. So beyond simple data feeds, so what we're talking here is portfolio information that's going from system to system, essentially, is the common way that we look at data feeds currently in Australia. Integrations between platform providers and advice tech are highly desirable, but still difficult to execute on. And historically, the sharing of integration of data between systems has been via that API format, going from one system through to the other. And as the user experience, we see portfolio information and asset information coming through into our systems, which is really great. But now, given that advice businesses often have multiple applications in their tech stack, we start to see activities such as double handling of information across those applications, which we start to see errors when you're starting to double handle information and inefficiencies, essentially, and less than desirable data models. You're sort of holding data in a bunch of different systems and not having that sort of central view of what's going on. So advisors are now looking to these applications to offer integration frameworks to get the data automatically pushed and pulled through to the systems. And typically this is done via an API. And with APIs, they require developers on either side to build the integration, which of course requires time, money, resources, all that stuff. But what we did observe in the report is that tech solutions are investing heavily in their integration capabilities, but I think it's probably still a reasonably new concept that stakeholders are getting their heads around, and we sort of do see those lags in execution and maybe expectations not being always appropriately managed as to what those integrations look like on the advisor side of things. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Danny. It's a key focus, and that sort of trying to avoid double handling of information is highly prized. We know that integration is a highly sought after capability by the advisors when they're assessing advice tech solution providers. So in our other research, we know that last year that advisors were reporting that they were using on average 3.6 digital systems in their practice, which had increased from 3.4 the previous year, and again from 3.1 the year before that. So they are actively calling out for these is better integrations between the systems. But we were pleased to see in the report that the tech providers were listening and were doing things about that, and that their end-to-end application providers were expanding their offers to meet this integration. So it was pleasing to see that they've been able to progress that as well. Yep, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess the key takeaway there is to just make sure advisors are asking how the integrations actually work with those providers. If they are saying they're offering the integrations, that's really great that they are. But what's data is being pushed and pulled back into systems? Is it basic client data, or is it more than that? Just sort of making sure everybody understands how that works.
That's right. Yes. And we know that, the time taken to produce a piece of advice, any time that you can reduce the time taken, obviously the cost to you, your practice as an advisor, comes down, and therefore potentially the cost to the end consumer can be maintained or reduced if possible as well, which is a key gateway in people who are seeking advice not proceeding with the decision to take that advice, is that they are unsure of or have a general understanding that the cost of advice is very high. So anything that we can do to reduce the time taken to produce the advice and reduce the cost of that, obviously, is going to help everybody in the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, 100%. All right. The other thing that we found in this report is that, global entrants are going to really keep local players on their toes. However, we probably really only expect the really well-capitalized entrants to make a big impact here. And I think, it's safe to say that's probably due to our shrinking advisor numbers. And we do have well-established incumbent providers as well, making it difficult by building out these integrations, having existing relationships, I guess, with platforms and that sort of thing. So, to put that into context with the shrinking advisors, we had, I think, 26,500 advisors in 2019, and currently we're just over 15,000. So the dynamic currently playing out is presenting a challenge for those global entrants in terms of global tech providers to make significant inroads in Australia. Yep. And also, like I said, we have those incumbent providers that have a strong foothold here. And also, I think just overhauling technology in an advice business is huge, right? It's a long project. It's 12 to 24 months is what we sort of say at Finura when we're talking to our clients, to get new technology in, onboard everybody, get comfortable with it, all that sort of stuff. But that being said, advisors are looking for superior support options and, of course, the functionality that reduces their cost to serve their clients. So we do anticipate that those tech companies that are well capitalized and can deliver really good functionality and support will be really well received.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think about that finding?
Absolutely,
Any comments?
Danni, yes, and it just sort of is a continuation of the previous point I was making, was that advisors are sort of very interested in any technologies that can help them simplify and shorten time to produce advice, as well as practical tools to help them in their practice management. So any sort of highly integrated solutions that enable sort of seamless transfer of client information from one application to another are highly valued, and are going to put their providers that offer these solutions in the best sort of competitive situation as well. Yep, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So again, I guess the key takeaway with this one is to, again, do your due diligence. It's super important, and it doesn't have to be too difficult. Just have some key questions that you want to know, particularly around that capitalization. I think is probably important to understand in the current market that we're seeing, capital kind of not being offered as freely as it was, I guess, over the last few years. So just sort of something that you should be asking your tech providers about longevity. And again, obviously the functionality needs to fit in with your advice practice, and those integrations, as we talked before, super important if you're building a tech stack.
Yep.
All right. One of the other findings that we found, I think one of the final ones we can talk about, is that evidence is in the research. We found that many providers are currently developing or looking to enhance their client portal offerings. I think cyber awareness is probably really going to drive the uptake of these portals as well. So again, some stats to throw out there, some scary stats. Every 7 minutes, we've got a cybercrime reported in Australia. The average cost of a cyber report is between $39,000 and $88,000. So it does need to be taken very seriously in our advice businesses, and we're probably pretty, quite at risk with the kind of information that we're holding on our clients. Client portals offer a secure and visually appealing way to share and engage with your clients as well. Currently, you might just be able to correct me on the stats here as well. We have a little over 40% of advice businesses utilising a client portal. So we've still got a way to go with client portal adoption, but we are pleased to see end-to-end advice tech heavily investing in client portal offerings, and that was sort of evidenced in the report as well. And a lot of standalone solutions coming to the market as well to sort of hit this point.
Yeah,
what do you
absolutely.
think about that one?
So in one of our related reports that we run annually as well, which is our platform benchmarking report, in the middle of the sort of interview period last year, the Optus data breach occurred, and that immediately focused everybody very much on, well, what exactly are these tech providers doing in relation to cybersecurity. It was sort of pleasing to note that they are all very active in this space, things like 2FA capability and some things like AI monitoring of transactions, and red flagging of suspicious activity on the platforms is already well advanced, which was great. And we know that, the advisors and the advice tech providers are in a particularly unique position in that they have a large amount of very important and sensitive information about the clients. And so their sort of responsibility to provide top tier cyber security capability is really very, very important. But we found that all of the providers that we spoke to were very active in this space, and that, we were speaking as recently as a couple of weeks ago to one of the other major platform providers that had upgraded yet again their cybersecurity capabilities for the clients, advisors, and who are using the platform. So it is very important focus for them, and that we will be looking with interest when we talk again to that sector in the next few months again this year about what else has happened in relation to that. So yes, it's something that everybody's very mindful of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, I sort of wondered, and we do get this feedback from advisors, they're worried about offering a client portal to their clients, and they're worried, I guess, about how they're going to handle a client portal and all that sort of stuff. But I think, maybe COVID has brought technology into everybody's lives, no matter what your age or, tech capability is. So if you've got something that's sort of simple to use in terms of a client portal, and, you're supporting your clients in that journey of understanding how the client portal works and what they're going to see in there and all that sort of thing, I think it's really important to not shy away from a client portal and really sort of investigate. In an advice business, a client portal is the piece of technology that does touch the end client. So, it's sort of another piece of work you need to really think about strategically. But I think the key is you can't really afford to shy away from it, really, from a cybersecurity perspective. But also I think clients are kind of expecting to have these more engaging tools.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. I think we've covered quite a bit in that, in our key findings. So thanks for joining me today, Paul, and some really good insights and hopefully some takeaways for you all to think about. Thanks for joining me, and we'll have further information in the show notes about how you can access the 2022 Advisor and Advice Technology Report. If you haven't already, take the Technology Health Check, which is available on our Finura website, www.finura.com, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks very much, everyone.